A UFO guy in East Lake? That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, that does sound pretty interesting.
I can tell you, this is pretty fascinating. It's pretty good stuff.
I want to talk to a UFO guy. I watch a lot of UFO stuff, like stuff about space and stuff like that. So.
Well, he calls in the UFOs. He calls them in. He's been on News Channel 8. He calls in the UFOs. They will appear.
I definitely need to talk to this. When are you releasing this episode?
20 hours from now.
Not Your Average Hipsters this week. We're going to be interviewing a psychic, Elizabeth Howell from Psychic Sushi TV on YouTube, speaking with Antoine, Jeremy, Ashley, and Elizabeth. How's everybody doing today?
Good. Great. I want to thank you for having me on.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about the different areas of really what you cover when you're talking on Psychic Sushi TV, or even when you're doing readings and stuff like that for people.
Okay. Well, first off, I am an ordained minister, so I'm Reverend Elizabeth Howell.
Oh, Reverend Elizabeth Howell.
My apologies. I'm ordained in the Church of Radiant Lights, which is a recognized church in the state of Ohio. It has the national, national church numbers too. So, but doing the psychic stuff and everything else, maybe I should go into how I got started.
Yeah, no, that's...
So basically at the age of 3, I had a near-death experience. I'm allergic to penicillin and sulfa.
Oh, wow.
And so I had an ear infection, and my mother took me into the doctor, and the doctor shot me up with penicillin and sulfa, and it was an adult dosage of it. So my body went into shock, and I went into a fever of 106. We went home, and they didn't realize how sick I was. My mother was trying to get my fever down. So when my dad came home from work, they were like, well, I think we need to take her to the emergency room. She's just not... At that time, I was getting unconscious.
Oh, man.
And so they got me to the emergency room. That I don't remember much, but I do remember in the emergency room itself that they had to do extreme measures to get my temperature down. So they put me in some kind of, rubber liquid and stuff like that. I don't even remember what exactly it was. And that caused my heart to stop. Mm-hmm. And I remember the doctor working on me. And I remember coming out of my body and looking down on the doctor and the nurses. And I thought that was really interesting. I was 3 years old. I'm looking down. And then I remember bright light opening at the top of the ceiling, and I was attracted to it. So I said, that looks really inviting. So I went into the light, and I met a woman halfway. There was a tunnel, and I met this woman halfway there, and she held out her hand and asked me to come on into the light. So I did go on to the other side, and I have very vivid memories of being on the other side. I won't go into those details, but I was maybe over there only total of 2 or 3 minutes. But in the duration of being over there, I learned a few things, and I was given the choice to stay or come back. And I said, well, I think I'll go back. I'm 3 years old.
Right. I haven't experienced too much yet.
Right. So I came back in, and I felt like I was sucked back into my body, and I didn't want to go there. Didn't want to be in that body anymore. It was like, hey, wait a second. That was actually pretty nice. So they induced me into a coma. And I remember flying, going in and out of my body at that point. And I would follow my parents around. And when I got up out of the coma, I think after 4 days or something, I told my parents everything they did. So you did this, you went there. And they're like,
how do you know this?
Yeah. And actually, for them to get me out of a coma, I give me drugs. Certain drugs make me do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. So they gave me some kind of a sedative, which actually made me hyper, and I climbed the curtains in the hospital room. The doctors are like, well, she's awake.
We don't know why.
And to this day, I still have that reaction. Like some medications just make me the opposite. When the nurses, I knew there's something was different, because when I came up out of the coma, I was seeing colors around people. I could see dead people as clearly as I could see real people. And I could see angels and fairies, and I could see all kinds of stuff, it took a little while to go like, what's going on? I think the biggest clue I had was the nurse was pushing me in a wheelchair. I kept telling the nurse, like, I don't like that man standing in the doorway. He's looking at me really weird. He's scaring me. And she said, there's no man in that doorway. And I'm like, yes, there is. He's an old man. He's got a gown on. She's like, no, there's no man there. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm seeing something really real, but they're telling me, no, it's not there.
Right.
So I had to really learn quickly to keep my mouth shut because parents, I was disciplined for having too much of an imagination. So you have to learn to kind of be careful what you say, but you're seeing things. I was very fortunate that I had a metaphysical family. So, we were just taught prayer and white light protections and those types of things. So I had that down, so to speak. When I turned about 4, I was getting ready to go to kindergarten. I'm 5 years old. I went in to be tested, and the principal's like, no, she has too active an imagination to put her into school. So my dad got really worried, and we were very fortunate. We lived in South Bend, Indiana, and Notre Dame College actually had a paranormal psychology, parapsychology department. So my dad took me there because he wanted to see what was going on. He wanted to see, well, maybe my kid's like losing it. And they tested me. They did the closed test where I was in one room. There was a subject in the other room, and I had to, they would hold up, they're called the Zener cards right now, but he would hold up a card that had a picture, and I would have to pick out a picture that they were holding up.
Oh, wow. So the college, Notre Dame, had you separated from in the room and okay. I just want to make sure I was following.
They had like a door. It was like a window, observation window, but they had somebody sitting at a table over here, and I was here. So they ran some other tests, and they just basically said to my dad, she's psychic, leave her alone. I was like, okay. I was raised on a farm. So I was really, to me, that was the saving grace, being around animals, hanging out in the nature helped me stay balanced. But you learn to shut that down because people don't want to hear that you're talking to, a spirit, or you see a dead person or whatever else is going on. They don't want to hear that because it's scary. So I learned to shut it down, but I would use it sometimes when I was taking tests in school. I would ask a spirit to give me the answers to the test, and I'd write it down, and I would get 100%.
Wow. Would you say that you were more connected to like spirits and like seeing things when you were a child compared to now? Or like, would you say it's consistently been? Okay.
Yeah. It's consistent. Now, that was in the early 90s, a gentleman from Berkeley, California came in to study me. And he was explaining to me what happens in a near-death experience, and this is why it changes people, is that there's an endomorphin that is released during death. And that endomorphin is only released once. And when it's released into the body, it hits what they call the seat of consciousness. It hits an area between the two halves of the brain. And in that area, when it's triggered, basically that's where we talk to God, or we talk to the other dimensions, or however you want to call it.
The universe.
Right. But it's like a radio receptor. It just opens right up. And he said they can induce that through these sound and brain waves and helmets and things like that. They can do that with radio waves and everything else out in Berkeley. They've been practicing that to induce more psychic abilities in people. But he said, obviously, that happened to you naturally. So then there's an actual scientific study. We know that this happens. So I didn't feel so weird knowing that there was actually a scientific study or results of understanding what had happened to me. So by the time I, was 16 to 17, I knew I still had these abilities, and I just didn't know what to do. And I got lucky enough. When I was about 18, some friends of mine started playing with tarot decks. And I was like, oh, this looks fun, And then I realized this whole door opened, it was just like back to, oh, I know what this is. I feel this. I know this. I continued to study. I went with, different teachers, and I started meditating and working on myself and trying to figure out exactly what this was. But the biggest realization I had is I went to a psychic fair, and there were all these people doing readings, all these psychics. And I was like, I'm home. I'm home. This is where I belong. Yes. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I didn't know this existed. And it was mind opening for me. So from that point, I decided I was going to run, not walk. So I studied, read everything I could get my hands on, went to every lecture, every types of workshop I could go to, studying different philosophies, Buddhism, Hinduism, Wiccan, shamanic studies, all that. I just took as much as I could, did as often as I could, because I wanted to figure out really what was going on with me.
Right.
I've been reading professionally for 34 years. And right after my daughter was born, I started reading actually online for the Kenny Kingston Psychic Hotline. I was that person when you call at 3:00 in the morning. Oh. I'm the psychic that answers the phone. I was a psychic and I'm doing the reading for you at $3.99.
So they actually hire real psychics to do the online psychics? Because I always thought that was just like a sham.
They hired me.
Right.
I can't guarantee that they hired every person.
Did they put you through like a...
Yes, they did test me.
They tested you? Okay.
Yeah. She just wanted me to do a sample reading. But I was reading for 5 different telephone lines. And I did that for 2 years. I read over 10,000, maybe 15,000 people.
Wow.
But it was a good way for me to stay at home with my kids. So I could take care of my kids, make a little bit of money, and practice up what I'm doing.
Is it harder to read people over the phone, or is it?
No, not for me.
Wow.
Not for me. I do a form of remote viewing, so I can pick up people's vibration through their voice, and then I do remote viewing. I'm able to go up and look at them. So remote viewing is basically just psychically looking at somebody in a different location. Yeah, for me, it's just as easy.
Okay.
So yeah.
So would you say that the catalyst for your abilities was that near-death experience then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And have you heard, so I know that you said that they found out a way at Berkeley to open up this door, and then the other way they know of is a near-death experience.
Yeah, it has.
Do you know of any other possible ways where you could be immersed into the world?
Well, what you can do, everyone can develop it. All right. So when I teach students, the first thing I'll teach them is don't ask for a near-death experience.
That sounds a little crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, okay, so I need to almost die. How do we do this?
You might not come back. That's not a good way of doing it, man.
Right. So the second thing to do is to learn just to meditate. And meditation, practicing meditation you start working both sides of the brain, the right and the left side of the brain. You practicing creative visualization, meditation, you start to then activate the seat of consciousness. It just takes more time, but it can be done. It's kind of like weightlifting. Everyone has the same muscles. It just takes time to develop them and get them bigger. There are people that I think sometimes people who are traumatized can also have some of that endomorphin released. People that have to go through disassociation or maybe have a major traumatization, their body goes through something like that. I think so. I have a theory that I believe probably 1 in 4 people have had some type of near-death experience, maybe either at birth or a little after birth, like there might have been a trauma sometimes that was just enough, like maybe not even a half a second. That can trigger that endomorphin. But those are my theories. I don't have accurate scientific backing on that one. But yes, anyone can develop it. I believe everyone is psychic. I think everyone is intuitive. Everyone is psychic. You may have a different name for it. You can call it intuition.
I was just about to say, so psychic just seems like such a broad term.
Well, it actually means breath of spirit.
Psychic?
So, yeah. So it's kind of this
I've
general
never heard
term.
that definition of it.
Well, yeah, that's because one of my questions for you is like being psychic, all the different branches of what people associate with psychic, and it almost sounds like sometimes you put 2 fields that I had separated together with like paranormal and like remote viewing psychically. Do you chop up being psychic in 2 different categories, or do you just say like it's just one overall thing?
Oh, I do chop it up into categories. I mean, it can be, but for me, it happens all at once. But everyone has different abilities too. So someone can be clairvoyant, which is see clear visions, or someone can be sentient, which is they just feel something going on, or precognition. So you have all these terms. I can go over all of them for you. They just best represent, okay, so we have our 5 senses, right? We see, taste, touch, hear, and smell.
Okay.
So psychic senses are the expanded of those. See something in the future or get a picture of something, hear something, but it's not really your own voice in your head. It's maybe a spirit speaking, that type of thing. Okay, does that help?
It helps. I just wanted your view on it because I have like all my...
Yeah. Well, people with their talents, like I said, there can be some people clairvoyant, but not clairaudient. And they have to work on the clairaudience. So they have to work on hearing clearly. I think we all start out with some specific gift, and we can expand on it, right? Some people are stronger in certain areas, right? So someone who's might be really, like I have one friend who's really gifted at clairaudience. They get clear names like Uncle George Carpenter. He can hear the clear names, and she can like, where did you get that name from? Like I've seen her pull a name like Agnes Stifleness and be like, you can't make up that name,
right?
And then one lady's like, oh my god, that's my great grandmother. It's like, wow. wow, that's awesome.
So what would you say your best version of that is?
For me, I'm clairvoyant, somewhat clairaudient. I really work hard. I think I'm all of it, but the clairvoyance is the biggest.
Okay.
I get pictures of things that are going to happen.
Okay.
Can you, with the being clairvoyant, can you just basically see like an aura, or I don't know the right way to word it here. Can you tell if somebody else is psychic or if they use their psychic abilities to, because you said everybody is. So can you tell if they are able to use it to a higher degree? Like, do you get that type of feeling? Or
I don't go into people's energies.
Okay.
Because there's a universal law.
Okay.
So we'll talk about, I'll give you an example. Okay. There's a universal law. I call it the peeping Tom law. You have your energy, you have your space, you have your auric field, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you invite someone in to look, it's really nobody's business to look into your field. Now, if you sat down and said, hey, do you think I'm psychic? Or you want me to scan my body or something like that? Then I'd be okay. I'll do that. I have permission, but I don't walk around and jump into everybody's field and try to read them. Okay. That's not, you're not asking, if you don't ask permission, you shouldn't do it.
It's not like proper etiquette.
It's not
so you didn't walk in and just read all of us immediately.
Right. No.
That's why I was like, oh, she's going to come in here and she's going to just pull us apart from the inside out.
I'm not. Wasn't that Stephen King book? No, that's not what I do. Basically, I learned the universal laws because the universe runs on a set of laws. And when you break them too many times, you can get smacked down pretty hard.
Okay.
I don't go into people's energies. I try to teach my students, don't do that. Okay. And number one, it's just rude. And number two, you don't know what you're going to pick up or what you're going to get. Being wide open, walking around wide open can leave you open to a lot of trouble.
So you're able to control when you want to see stuff.
Yes.
And then so if you're in a big crowd, you're not going to open yourself up or at all. And then if you're in a smaller intimate thing, you might open up if the person's willing.
Right. I do not open up in crowds like shopping centers or, wherever we're at, malls. I don't open up. I really wouldn't want to open up. But now if someone comes to me and says, I need a reading or that type of thing, or there's an understanding you're getting a reading, yes, then I open up and I will read that person. Because I do think there's a lot of stuff out there, energies, that people can mess with your energy fields. There are people that intentionally are psychic vampires, people that are intentionally putting out harm too. So you have to really know about psychic protection, auric field protection, all of that. It's very important. I always teach that with my students. When I teach, beginning psychic 101 is basically protection, close it out, balance it out, that type of thing. It's very important. Going back to how I work, because I'm very fortunate that I see everything. So I do see ghosts. I do see spirits that crossed into the light and come back. I see angels. I see fairies. I see gnomes. I see beings. I see, I've seen UFOs. I've seen stuff like that. I have this broad spectrum. Whereas, I was talking to Marian Winkowski one time and, she's the ghost whisperer, ghostbuster. And she said, I would never want to be like you. I'm like, oh. Really? She's like,
thanks.
So she's like, because she goes, I just see ghosts. That's it. Once they cross into light, I don't see them anymore. Mm-hmm. But she said, you see it all. So she goes, my vision's like this. Your vision's like this. And I said, yeah. When I open it up, I do. It's like that. I see ascended masters. I see star people. I mean, it's all out there.
What is an ascended master?
You
said that, and everybody else is and I'm like, nope.
Not letting that one slide by.
Okay, no way. Well, an ascended master is a human who has reached what we call, a higher consciousness, similar, how do I put this, like a Buddhic consciousness or a Christ consciousness, but they understand what reality is and how to move between this, the third dimension here and all the, 20 other different dimensions. So an ascended master actually never died. They actually did just move into another dimension, took their body, and they work in other dimensions, but they can also work in this dimension and physically appear.
So for our Star Wars fans out there, they're essentially like Force ghosts. Like when they died, they became part of the Force, right? Is that or am I misunderstanding that?
It's close enough because
I don't think she said they never died.
Right.
They actually don't die. Ascended. They ascend. They actually move their matter, their physical matter, and they're able to vibrate it then at the 7th dimension or 12th dimension. And they can physically come back and be real, just like we're here, and physically be real again at any moment.
So I can shake a ascended master's hand one day.
You could if you wanted to.
If they were willing to.
I want to.
They don't want to shake your hand.
Well, I'll give you my story. Okay, I'll give you my story about Ascended Masters. I had a teacher, Cynthia Hart, and she had gone on a vision quest and went up to Mount McKinley, I think it was, or Mount Washington, one of them. Sorry, Cynthia. But anyway, I can't remember which one.
I'm misrepresenting your vision quest.
But she went up and she wanted to meet Saint Germain. He is considered the saint, ascended master of the New Age, or of the Now Age. And she wanted to meet him. So she prayed and vision quest and prayed, and he appeared to her real. He appeared to her real, and he gave her a necklace. And it's the most unusual necklace I've ever seen. It was a very strange stone too, but he gave her the necklace and counseled her a little bit, talked to her. He was real. Like, he shook his hand. She said he was real. I didn't believe her.
And then he ascended back off in front of her?
Yep.
So like went from full flesh being 96 degrees or 97 or 98.5. I forgot exactly how hot we are. But he shook her hand.
And then dematerialized. Now, if you ever read about Sai Baba, there are stories about him. I think it's Sai Baba who disappeared and reappeared. That's a whole nother thing. But anyway, Saint Germain, I listened to her story. I'm like, I want Saint Germain to show up. I have got to.
That's how I kind of feel right now. So I kind of feel like, Saint Germain, can you please drop in on the podcast?
Well,
we need you for the clout real quick.
I wish we could do that. But I prayed and meditated for 2 weeks. I worked on it. I prayed every day. I'm just like, I got to see him. I got to see him. And towards the end of that, I can't remember, it was 2 weeks or so, but I was in the middle of meditation on my living room floor. And I had my eyes closed, and all of a sudden I heard a voice, call my name. And I opened my eyes, and I saw, wasn't as corporal, as hard as this table, but there was a man standing in front of me. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a ghost. I see those.
Yeah.
I'm like, he goes, I am real. And he took his thumb and he pushed it up against my forehead and knocked me over. And I was like, okay, that was really weird. I'm laying on the floor going, I'm laying on my floor. I think that just happened. I jumped up and I ran upstairs and I looked in the mirror, and there was a thumbprint on my forehead. Red. Wow. A red thumbprint. It stayed there for a week.
A week?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Wow.
And I said, and I heard him say to me, now you know I am real. And I was like, I'm kind of convinced at that point.
A little shook.
Didn't get the exact experience I was hoping for, but that was pretty solid. Even my husband was like, you're going to have to do something about that really horrible pimple. It just looks really bad. I'm like, it's not a fingerprint, honey. It's a fingerprint. And it really was a fingerprint. I mean, he looked at it. He's just kind of like, he goes, what did you do? Like, take a hot iron to your face? And I goes, what is going on? And I had called Cynthia at that point. I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, ask and you'll get it.
You thought I was lying.
Yeah.
So is there only one ascendant master per period of time, or
No, there's many.
Okay. Just the way you had said that he's like the ascendant master of the now.
Saint.
He's a Saint Germain. He was actually, if you do any history on it, he was called the Count that could never die. He actually was in the French court, and actually is believed to also have been Merlin, several incarnations. He was called man that could never die. But basically, again, it's these people, they reach such a high level of spirituality that they are able to literally change their molecules, and dimension shift.
I'm interested in this. You've mentioned a bunch of things, but you never mentioned the word demons. Are those real, or are those just made up?
Gotta go to that D word, right? Demons are real, and they're not though what we think they are. Okay, so I can get into semantics with people because people are very Christian and whatever. They're going to be like, okay, these demons are these things. There are forces of light, forces of dark. It's part of the universe. It's part of the balance. There are yin and yang, right? White and light. So even when you kind of break everything down, there's always this light force and a dark force. I don't know why. That one I can't explain. But demons are really these creatures that exist, and their purpose, they do have kind of a soldier type of energy with them. They are organized, and they do have leaders who lie to them. Angels are real. Demons are real. Do demons have power? Not really. They're not the creatures that you see on Supernatural. Okay.
No Crowley.
No yellow eyes here, man.
Yeah, I know. I watch Supernatural. I love it, but it makes me snorkel and chuck every time I'm checking. That's crazy. That's so funny. No. But they have a purpose. All right. There's a reason, a purpose for them, just like there is in everything in the universe. They don't have a lot of power. If a human gives them power, they can have some power. People that play with, now to all my my Wiccan friends and to all my magical friends, I love you. But when you start playing with trying to take a creature and make it do your bidding, trying to control it, trying to make it do things for you, like bring you gold, not a good idea. Because, it's kind of like roping a cow. You're a steer. You got the rope on the cow, but it's going to drag you all over the place and kick you too. and then you're going to let go and go, what the hell was that? So, as I said, I was raised on a farm. So logic told me don't ever go there because that's, you're just going to have a really angry bull at you.
Right. Physical animals are dangerous enough.
Are you able to communicate with animals more?
Mm-hmm, I'm telepathic with animals. But yeah, demons are real. And I think that there's a specific, like when people say, okay, I've got a demon in my house, there are some real specific signs. And
I think this is a good topic for the house here.
And a lot of times you have to figure out, is this really a demon or is this a poltergeist? Because poltergeist likes to play games and like to make you think they're demons and they're really not. But if it's a true demon, you're really going to know that. And then there are specific people who can get rid of demons. Mm. The true key to working with demons and getting rid of them, though, is we trap them and then we transmute them into light. Okay, so we take the dark out, we turn them to light, and we send them on to the other side. So it's long and involved, and it happens because eventually it's more like psychology with them. You sit around, talk with them a little bit, and say, hey, aren't you kind of tired of being pushed around and yelled at? Don't you want to go in the light and relax and, float around a little bit and hang out with your buddies? And then they're kind of like,
that makes sense.
I'm getting tired of being pushed around. Yeah, I'll do that. And that's for mostly a true demon, though. It's I have people that have, do the exorcisms, do the changing, and it's long, involved, difficult. And that person who does that has to be of really high vibration. They have to know their protection. So there's very few and far between. A true demonologist, a true person that does that. I can think of I think Carl Johnson is one out of Rhode Island. And then there is a priest here in Cleveland. But I mean, it's not, you don't just kind of become a psychic and then go, hey, I'm going to take on that demon shit. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. No. It's not something that it's not for the faint of heart. And there are people who are drawn to help people with that, but it's not the easiest area in psychics and ghosts and paranormal. That's a real tough area.
So if you ran into it, you'd be like, this is above my pay grade. I can get you in contact. Okay.
I definitely.
So if I was attacked,
okay,
if I suffered physical injury from something I could not see, what would you say it was?
We would have to see.
And does it matter if I was naked or not while I received the injury?
No, it would not matter if you were naked. But what we'd have to see is it would most likely it's just a poltergeist. It's trying to appear like a demon. So let me give you an example of that.
Because I thought it was just a ghost.
So there are ghosts and there are ghost energies that will, but there's also entities.
Energies and entities are two.
Entity. An entity is different. Now I call the entities. Entities are, they're kind of like the garbage men in the universe.
Okay.
So they actually, when I look at them, they look like little dust bunnies. They're about this big and they're black.
Could they be like this big?
They can get bigger if you feed them.
Told you I wasn't tripping when I seen the things going around the pool table.
So entities are elementals. They are beings that are connected to the earth and intelligence is connected to the earth, and they feed on human negative emotions. So they feed on fear, on hate, on violence, on stuff. So if an entity will say, okay, well, here's this guy and you sure look like you can make me a lot of food. So I'm going to jump on you and I'm going to make you fearful, hateful, negative, nasty. So I've got all this lunch all the time. And so working with attachments is a whole different thing. And there are people that get rid of attachments. And I can teach you how to get rid of an attachment if you got one. They appear, they read you. Okay. So you're just as clear as a window pane to them. They can see all your fears. They can see everything within your heart, everything you've done. And they'll just go, what can I do to create more fear or hate or anger? And they will appear to you to do that. So my example is I had a client and she moved into a house where a group of people had created an entity and left it in this house. They were a magical ritual went wrong. This entity was in the house. So it wasn't a ghost. And in order to deassemble a magical entity, you have to know what ritual was done to put it together.
Okay.
Which I'm not real good at figuring those out. So I had no idea what was done to put this thing together. So it was like kind of like a little Frankenstein little thing. Does a bunch of different energies all bound together. But what it would do, it would attack anybody in the house. In this little tiny house, this girl was renting. She came running down to where I was working out of the Purple Lotus at the time. She came running down. She's like, oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm getting attacked every night. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me about what's going on. And she was talking about this big spider every night. Was laying on top of, like, would be over in her ceiling on top of her, and then would jump down on top of her every night. She couldn't sleep. And I already knew this entity was a problem before because he had messed with the earlier occupants. So I just knew this entity was doing something. So I just said, let me guess, you like are really fearful? Do you have like a spider phobia by any chance? She's like, well, yes, I do. I'm scared to death of spiders. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, why don't you start laughing at it instead? She's like, what? No. I said, just laugh at the spider. Laugh at it and tell it it's doing a really good job of, but you're not scared. I said, what you're going to have to do is start talking to this entity and just laugh at it, tell it has no power or whatever. And she looked at me like I was like crazy. And sure enough, after a couple of weeks of her learning to laugh at it, it kind of started shrinking and it started getting smaller. And it stopped bothering her after a while, So it helped her. We didn't get rid of it. It took us, actually, the house burned down was the only way to get rid of it. So the house burned down and the entity left. So
that's one surefire way, guys, to get rid of the entity.
Burn your house down.
Burn your house down.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you can't get that energy cleared out, sometimes things happen. Do they make the fire happen? No, but they can make things happen. A demon, you know there's a demon around because one, you feel really physically ill. And I mean like ill, sick to your stomach, and you smell sulfur. And they don't mess around. I mean, they throw you around, they hurt you, they can be very physical. So a poltergeist might scratch you and scare you, but they don't really assault you. But people who come back, bruises all over their bodies, they're physically ill. They're running around with constantly having, health issues. There could be a demon.
So I think we use the correct term for the thing that attacked me in the shower was a poltergeist.
Okay. Yeah. We're just beginning to realize that there's all these energies out here and we're becoming more aware of them. I think because of a lot of television shows and stuff like that. I think in the olden days, people would just either ignore it or
it's
pray.
It's blasphemy.
Right.
Yeah. You're not allowed to talk about that. Why? The church says so.
We're going to burn you at the stake if you tell us about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like people always told me like there's nothing, but like I've always seen things that like I've been like you said, you told somebody like it's right there. And then they're like, there's nothing there. And I'm like, well, you ain't about to tell me because I can see it. So like we're at a different level here. Like at that point, I'm not even listening to you anymore because you're just denying what I'm obviously seeing. Mm-hmm. So I always been able to fight through the naysayers, I guess. But I just don't know I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Like any of the terminology behind it.
Okay,
whatsoever.
like I don't know what's going on in my life because I done seen figures of full white, but I can tell like they're a body. Like I could see the face and like they were like walking past my mom and stuff while she was sleeping. I done seen full black figures like peeking around and like watching family dinners and things like that. And I've seen things that look like it's almost a person, but I know it's not a person because it's not solid enough to be a person.
Well, yeah, you're seeing it all.
Yeah. So I don't know what and my mom always just tells me, well, there's something following you around and that's all it is. There's no explanation. And I'm like, okay, cool, Mom. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the help.
I'm chucking along here with all these problems of mine.
Well, I recommend because when I teach and I love to teach people because I think everyone has built abilities. I think at some level. I mean, I have people come into the center and these are mothers. They're like, my little grandchild is talking to grandpa. He's dead and he's talking to grandpa all the time. Or what do I do? So there's a couple of things going on. A couple of theories. I'm gonna say theories, but there's a couple things going on. One, everyone's naturally intuitive, and again, everyone has a gift. So it's just figuring out the terminology. So there's a book called Idiot's Guide to Psychic Awareness.
Okay.
And
Psychic for Dummies.
It's actually Idiot's Guide. I recommend it. It's out of print, but I recommend it because I use it as a textbook for my classes. And the reason I do is like if I was going to write a book, it's all there. I don't need to write a book. It's already written. So I don't have to bother. It's right there. It is out of print, but you can get it. And it has terms. It has exercises. And I think the most important thing is when you read about it and you get the terms, you get the understanding understandings of what this is. What is this? What is that figure? Kind of brings the fear out of it. It brings the fear like, oh, okay, I know what that is now. That shiny, sparkly thing, that was a fairy. That tall, white light with purple light, that was an angel. Like you get to know what those are. And I think it bringing the fear out of it by educating yourself is key. What is going on today, and this is really, really important, no one's talking about it, is the Schumann's resonance on the planet Earth has bumped up to the highest level it's ever been recorded in 10, 15,000 years. Now, the Schumann's resonance is basically the heartbeat of the Earth, planet Earth. So for 10,000, 12,000 years, it was basically I think it was like 7.2 or 8 point something, and they never thought it could go past 10. It's at 73. Jeez.
Wow.
Okay.
Is that like correlated to how many people we have on the Earth now?
No, it has to do with, so let's imagine the heartbeat of the planet is, right now we're listening to German death metal. It's like, what? So when we're sleeping, we're eating, we're moving, we're existing, our brain waves want to correspond with the heartbeat of the mother. We want to correspond to that. We've been trained, we've been genetically, birthing, being part of that heartbeat. It's not nice anymore. It's 73. They think it might go even higher. They don't know why. They're still trying to go, well, it could be this and it could be that. But whatever it is, our brains can't connect anymore. So we feel disconnected, but it's also shifting us. It's changing us. So we're becoming more aware and perceptive. And this is part of maybe what they say, this could be part of our transformation into the light. It could be part of our evolution of becoming more enlightened creatures. I would hope that's what it is. But we do see a lot of polarity going on. And that's the other thing. It's like, I was seeing the polarity 10 years ago going, what is going on with people? Why is there so much polarity? Because it's, you're either black or white. It's you're this way or that way. There's no
blue or red
in between. Mm-hmm. And people are hostile on getting upset on these extremes. And it's kind of like those that are in the dark are trying to advocate, total destruction and annihilation. They, let's have this, let's just destroy everything. And the people in the light are going, well, let's all, just send you love, So the polarities have gotten even more. So we're aware of these polarities, right? But as I was told in a meditation, that this is a good thing because now the dark was always inside everyone. The darkness. We always have a light and a dark within ourselves. But now it's out in the open. So when you're dealing with someone and you're like, hey, I didn't know you're a racist bigot. Like, wow, I've known you for 25 years. Where did that come from? Well, guess what? It was always there. Yeah. Okay. But it's out in the open. So now I don't have to guess that person's a racist, bigot, Nazi. I just now know what they are. The truth is out. So,
I guess that is good. That is good.
Yeah.
That it's not disguised anymore.
It's not disguised.
It makes stuff a lot more volatile, but it's not disguised, which is what I was asking for in one of our episodes. Like, don't disguise it.
Well, right.
We actually didn't release that episode.
But it's really there now. It's out there now. And that's all we can do now is now heal. And see, that's the whole key is no one's talking about that. How do we heal? Mm-hmm. How do we heal this? This isn't about, these are our brothers and sisters, and they're in pain because they're full of hate and anger. So how do we heal that? So that's why all these people want to learn to be healers. They go to YouTube channels and learn how to do Reiki healing and do all that stuff. And that's more power to them. We need to do that. But so everyone's abilities are coming up, and these children that are growing up are exceptionally psychic. Now, I just learned about a school in Mexico, and I don't know if it's the city of Mexico or the state or whatever, they have a school for gifted children. Mm-hmm. And they have all these children that are extremely psychic, and they're protecting them and they're raising them to be psychic. They're teaching them. And these kids are coming up with some phenomenal, math equations and, these phenomenal, they're channeling, higher, probably Isaac Newton or whatever it is. And they're channeling healing energies, and they're talking to angels, and they're doing things that are just, we need on this planet. And that's pretty amazing. And these are young kids. And I'm just like, really sad that this isn't happening in the United States, that we're not taking care of our children, because there's so many children that are intuitive, empathic, and psychic, and they're not getting the help. They're being told to shut up, or there's something wrong with you, or here's some pills.
Yep.
You know,
that's probably the most popular one is here's some pills.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so, you know, my grandson is extremely gifted. Now he's an empath, and what he does is like if he's with someone who's in pain, he takes their pain and puts it in his body, which I'm told that's a big no-no. You can't do that. I got to teach you not to do that. But I'll give you an example. His father dropped a railroad tie on his foot. He was moving garden stuff around and dropped a railroad tie on his foot. And my son was like, oh, well, he goes, oh, that doesn't hurt. And my grandson's standing next to him. My grandson starts crying, and he's like holding his leg. And I'm like, what is going on? And I take Eric, and I'm like, oh, come on, Eric, let's go. I'm going to take him to my house. And Eric got in the car, and I said, well, I told my son, I said, do you need to go to the hospital? I mean, that looks pretty bad. Like you might have broken your foot. He says, oh, I don't feel any pain. It's fine. Okay. I got Eric to my house. My son calls me and goes, I think I need to go to the emergency room. My foot hurts really bad. As soon as we got away from his father, Eric's leg stopped hurting.
Wow.
And my son started feeling the pain again. So Eric just literally took all that pain, and he wants to heal. So, I mean, and there's examples of that all over. We have people that come into the center. I work out of Namaste Life Center in Medina, and we have healers and teachers and all kinds of workshops and classes. And we have parents come in with their kids going, my kid's psychic. You know, or my teenager is becoming extremely psychic. They're seeing things. What do I do? I'm like, okay, well, sit down. We'll talk about this, because this is what you need to do. And for you, if you're seeing things, you're not losing your mind. They're really there, but it's dimensional. So even though you're seeing it, it's not really it's kind of like looking in different dimensions all at one time.
Okay. Earlier when you had talked about the Schumann frequency, I'm saying that right,
yeah.
Right? Do you think that might have anything to do with, so it's been growing steadily since like the 80s, right? Then?
Yeah. Since the 90s, early 90s, yeah.
Okay, so do you think it might have anything to do with something like how we're always swimming around in Wi-Fi waves and like 4G waves and like stuff like it's almost we're not psychically connected to the earth anymore because of all the technological interference? It's like hitting a boiling point. How you said it was going towards like German death metal, right? Yeah. The internet or whatever waves that are like we're swimming in right now because we're always walking through it anyways technologically. Do you think that it's like a cap to be put on it? Or is it? Or am I misinterpreting how that?
No, actually, no, you're not misinterpreting. But I don't believe. I believe that's a whole separate thing, because the Schumann's resonance is really next. It has to do with the Earth's magnetic molten core, and it also has to do with the magnetic North and South Pole. So we already know the North Pole moved.
Right.
A little. It's going to move some more. So a lot of the now-agers say that, we're going to go through the Earth changes. The Earth changes has started. The poles are going to shift. What happens? What's going to happen with the polarities, the shift? Because every 10 to 20,000 years, the Earth shifts its magnetic poles. What's going to happen? So there's lots of theories as to what that is. But they believe that this might be the actual signal that the Earth, the magnetic core is changing, and it'll flip. North will be south, south will be north.
Okay.
I have a question. Are your children and grandchildren more psychic because of you?
That was actually one of my questions. Is being more in tune? Yeah. Is it like a hereditary thing?
Well,
or is it because you got like nature versus nurture here?
Yeah.
And like
you're nurturing it.
I think it's a little of both. And the only reason I say that is, and you'll appreciate this. So anyway, my son is, he's intuitive, but he tells me I'm full of shit every day. And he says, he's like, oh, and I'm going to, he goes, yeah, you keep it up. And I'm going to tell, call the police that you talk to, invisible people and, or say things like, have fun with your invisible friends or stuff like that. But when he went to a festival and he ran out of money, he had taken a tarot deck with him and he sat down on a blanket and started doing readings for people at a festival. And he made a whole bunch of money and was able to finish up his festival in great times. Hookahville, if you're familiar with Hookahville, anybody go to Hookahville? No.
Yeah.
No Hookahville yet, but I guess I'll be on the way.
So he did readings, and everyone was impressed. Paid him a bunch of money to do readings, and I said, "Honey, you didn't even train tarot." He's like, "I know." Whereas my daughter, she was as a child. it was extremely psychic and intuitive. She painted pictures of her home planet, her water planet. She told me all these stories, told me all about the water planet. And she painted these pictures. And we had a fire walk at my house and people walking across hot burning coals. Yes, I did do that. And all these people are at the fire walk. And this one young man, some of them had spent the night. And my daughter woke up early in the morning, went and tapped him on the shoulder and told him something. And he started bawling. And I got up and I was like, oh no, why are you up? And I put her back, and I asked him, I said, are you okay? And he was like, your daughter just told me the answer to the biggest question in my life. Just like put it out there. And he's like, I'm having a breakthrough with this. And I'm like, well, and he goes, I don't, he didn't want to talk about it. But I asked her, what did you say? And she just said, well, the so-and-so told me to go tell him that. So like she just was conveying a message from a spirit that was in the house to give him this, high spiritual lesson. Nowadays, what's going on? No, mom, she's a nurse and she wants to argue with me about everything. She's like, yeah, but is she intuitive? Oh yeah. She just doesn't use it. She doesn't use it in work and stuff. At the time of when she was with me, when my mother was passing, and when my mother left her body, my daughter stood up and I saw my mother walk through my daughter, and she was like, literally all the hair was standing up. She's like, she goes, I felt grandma. I'm like, yeah, you did.
Wow.
So she was very in tune with what was going on at that time. So do they use it? No.
The biggest disappointment. It's there, and they know that they can access it, and they know they can, if they really want to, they can work on it, but they choose not to. And that's okay.
So I've seen that you also do past life regression sessions.
Mm-hmm. I do hypnosis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist through the IMDHA.
What would be like an interesting story that you have from doing that? Like, have you ever had somebody that had like a past life of like a historical figure, or was in any like really weird or crazy situation that even blew you back a little bit?
Everybody wants to be Cleopatra, but everybody's just a servant, guys.
Right, you're right. I have not yet had anything that was really a historical, like Caesar or, the Queen of England or anything like that.
About like the jester of the Queen of England.
I haven't gotten lucky enough to have one of those. I have found that a majority of the past life regressions that I've done, it's mostly a pretty average life, just like we have today.
Potato farmer.
Or servant, or sometimes a public figure that's more like, working for, a government officials or stuff like that. I've had people have those, which is really fascinating because I have found, most people go in with the idea, I was the Queen of England, or a psychic told me I was the Queen of Atlantis, and and
how much stuff do you debunk from fictitious psychics? Yeah.
Do I debunk personally, or
when somebody comes in and it's like, yeah, they told me I ran Atlantis, and you're like, well, sorry to tell you, but you were just a servant.
Well, with the hypnosis though, hypnosis is personal. So when a person goes into trance and they're experiencing that past life, like they're watching a movie or TV screen, they are experiencing their own past life and with their inner vision. So that's different than when someone just sits and tells you, hey, you used to be, King Henry V or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a very different experience. If a psychic says to someone, yes, you were the Queen of England, I'm not going to disagree with them on that. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that psychic because that's maybe what they're getting. But when somebody does a past life regression, it's more important that for that inner vision for them. Okay. Because they're tapping into their own Akashic records, their own history, their own information. No one's telling them. So it's a true experience.
Okay. So it's completely two different things. And it is like, you're saying like maybe the psychic told them that based off of something that they heard from like the spirit.
Could be.
Or, yeah. and then the other, like the past life regression is coming from like hypnosis and within yourself, like right. Your actual memory. Okay. All right.
That and absolutely. So that's why I agree all the time that hypnosis, I advocate over and over again with people that the hypnosis is the way to go. Because if you want to know, and I was fortunate, I'll back up. I was fortunate back in 1988. I think it was. I went to a bookstore and I found a past life regression cassette tape by Dick Sutton. And I was like, oh, I know I've had a past life. I want to do this. And it was self-hypnosis. It was a self-hypnosis CD or tape. And I was like, wow, it blew me away, that hypnosis experience.
Is that what brought you to start doing hypnosis?
It is. And I used other, hypnosis programs, past life, other things. And I was like, this hypnosis stuff is pretty cool. I'm like, I want to do that.
Is anybody able to be hypnotized?
Yes. Except there are two things. If you've had brain damage and you can't follow instructions because you actually have like a physical problem.
That's not like you have an authority issue. Like you have a physical problem. No, just
problem. if you have a physical problem, you can't. There's some people that cannot be hypnotized. Maybe having to do with like a brain injury or something like that. But everyone, if you can answer these questions, then you can be hypnotized. So the first question I always ask you is, are you average or above average intelligence? Okay. Can you follow instructions?
Okay.
So if you answer yes to both those questions, then you can be hypnotized. Okay.
Jeremy's so geek right now. He's like, yes.
Well, because we were having a debate on if you could be hypnotized, if you're just like hard-headed or you feel mentally strong.
If you don't want to be hypnotized, you can't be. You are in control at all times. You are in control at all times in hypnosis. But if you want to get some results, you're going to listen to the instructions, and you're going to learn that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis as well.
All hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Yes.
You just need to be guided down the road.
I'm a Sherpa. You're doing all the work.
Okay.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah.
I call myself really a Sherpa because I help people. They're doing all the inner work. They're doing all that work. I just kind of get them through some of the bumps in the road, so to speak.
Our psychic episode went a lot longer than expected, so we're going to have to cut it short here, do another part tomorrow, since we have Spotify and YouTube limits. So for now, enjoy the song and then come back tomorrow.